Welcome back to the Becoming Her podcast, you guys. Today, Dr. Ann and I are here, and we have just a very, I guess, passionate topic that we want to have a very organic conversation around. And this is something that we both have very strong feelings towards and a lot to say about. As Ann's like shaking her head, she's like, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. And I think I'm going to title this Breaking the Less is More Mentality. And I told Ann I really wanted to dive into this. We were just having a conversation right before we hit the record button. I wanted to dive into this because I've created multiple different TikToks over the last, I don't know, couple months, and quite a few of them have gone viral. And these TikToks are centered in and around a concept of how eating more food is advantageous and how, always eating less is taking you in the backwards direction. And the common theme within the comment section of these TikToks is that's way too much food. I couldn't possibly eat that much food. And it's this mentality that food is the enemy. And it, like I was telling Anna, I'm like, it's so crazy to me that it is 2025 and we still have so many women convinced that giving their body what it needs is somehow going to take them in the ass backwards direction. And so I want to break this mentality. And I love having Ann here to really dive into the mental side of it, right? Like Ann said, the shame and whatnot that goes into that. But Ann, why don't you kick us off here? Because I think that's the place to start, just because, again, I think that's what's wrapped into food. And there's so much shame and guilt wrapped into that.
There is, and let me kind of give a background for this, just because I've done a lot of presentations and done a lot of education on this, even in the work that I do about America as a very highly disordered eating. We sell food in relationship to happiness, sex, love, connection. We do it in commercials. It's the Happy Meal.
Yeah. Happy
Like
true. I never
the
thought of
name
it that way.
of things. I just, guys, like, please, I'm not bashing McDonald's, but the way that we kind of phrase food in America is very disordered to begin with. Disordered because we emphasize food's relationship to even our connection to other people, but also our relationship to ourselves. And so we've developed this love-hate relationship with food that's really kind of awful for us as human beings. And so many of us who grew up in, I'm going to say that the 90s, early 2000s, we believe that we were moving against American culture, because American culture is like more is better, and you go and supersize me, and our serving sizes are absolutely ridiculous just about everywhere we go.
Yeah.
We think that we're not getting a great deal if the size of our dessert is not as big as our face and we only pay $10 for it, right? So the issue with that is that already puts us behind the eight ball when it comes to managing weight, because we have this inflated idea about what serving sizes should be. But then we have this really bizarre idea about how to manage weight when it comes to managing food. So we don't just say, maybe these serving sizes are too big. We go, no, that food, that cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory made me fat. Okay, guys, that slice of cheesecake is probably 6 times what it needs to be. All right, maybe only
It's
two.
so funny you say Cheesecake Factory, because that was the first thing that came to mind when you said serving size portions. That was the first place that came to mind.
Well, and we have a place here locally that is just simply a dessert place. And I've gone there with my friends. We each ordered dessert, and I kid you not, the servings of these dessert were this big, and there was like chocolate and syrup and everything. It was enough to feed 4 people, and we each got our own, all 4 of us. So that was a little overwhelming. But what happens then is we overcorrect, right? And so we overcorrect, and we believe that in overcorrecting, we're good. And friends and people in our lives will actually praise people. And this is where I get into when I work with people that have anorexia. They get into this weird mentality of, well, I get noticed and I get accolades when I lose weight, or I get noticed for my self-discipline when I'm not eating the dessert, or I get noticed when I'm exercising to extreme, or when I lose weight really fast. And therefore, we think it's good, right? We think because we got our needs met, that we're finally getting noticed, and we're finally being seen, and we're being acknowledged, that therefore what I'm doing is positive, and it means that I'm going in the right direction. When oftentimes as friends and family members, and see, even sometimes as physicians, we're not doing a real good job at asking people how they're doing it and if they're okay doing that,
Mm,
right? And so we walk around saying, I'm doing so well. I gave up carbs for whatever, fill in the blank what we gave it up for, or I gave up junk food. And while, yes, it can be good for us to get away from eating too much of those things or the portion sizes that we're consuming, we wind up overcorrecting for our culture. And it creates this really weird dynamic then where we feel shame if we're not doing the absolute opposite of everything in our culture. If I'm not giving up all the junk food, if I'm not losing 5 pounds a week, if I'm not,
mm,
staving off ever sugary food and doing a half marathon a week, then somehow I'm not worthy and I'm not seen. Um, and I think what just is a long-term impact of that, and I hear this from a lot of people, is that we lose weight really fast and people start noticing us, and then we keep losing weight or we plateau and people stop noticing us.
mm,
Therefore, I'm not getting this external validation. I'm not being noticed. I'm not being given attention. I must not either be doing it right or it doesn't matter, because the only reason I was doing it was to get noticed. And so we get into these vicious cycles emotionally and psychologically of trying to get our needs met by using food as almost a means, but we're using food against our body. It's almost like we are depriving our body, and somehow we are praised for doing things to extreme, but punishing our body as the end result of that.
mm, mm. I want to get your thoughts on this because I've created a couple of videos, and again, the perception here, like you said, portion sizes and just, relationship with food. But I created a couple of videos, and in these videos, I talk about how to effortlessly get 150 grams of protein a day. And I give breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack options. And I've created two different videos on this. The first video was like the nutrition added up to about 2000 calories, just slightly like 1950 or something, just slightly under 2000 calories. And the second one that I did was like 1750, 1800 calories. And in both of those videos, it was, that's way too much food but here's the thing, when we get to eat whole foods, right? Obviously the options that I'm giving are whole food driven. When we get to eat whole foods, we get a lot more. And so the crazy thing is nobody sits down and goes out, like you said, date night with your hubby or girls night out and goes out to the cheesecake factory and sits down and eats easily 2000 calories in one meal and doesn't bat an eye, right? Between wine and pasta and the dessert. But the second I give you 2000 calories a day of whole foods, oh no, 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 no. Like who eats that much food? It's way too much food. And I'm going, like, I'm giving you food to fuel your body here. But like we sit down at like a meal out and you can easily consume 2000 calories in one meal without even like batting an eye at it. And so I would love to get your thoughts there, because again, that was the number one comment in there. And this video it has 1 million views. It has thousands and thousands of comments of people. That's just, how do you eat that much food? Like, where do you put that? And I'm like, at breakfast was like 3 eggs and some egg whites. And like, so, you know what I mean? And just, it was just the perception of it. So I'd love for you to kind of dive into that a little bit.
Well, and I'm gonna fall on the sword on this one a little bit, because even though I do this work for a living, it doesn't mean that I don't hear information or even perceive it myself. And as I was getting older, and I just celebrated birthday, I'm now officially a half a century old, and
In a
hurrah,
little
I
bit,
made
babe.
um, and I was going to physicians because my hormones were changing, my weight was changing. I was doing kind of the same thing. I've always been a cardio junkie. It wasn't a weight management thing. I just love cardio. I really do. It was heartbreaking for me when I had to start doing strength training, because I was like, well, what about all my time on my bike? Like,
What's going on here?
what's gonna happen with that? Um, and I fought this too. Like I fought this, and it's because I was going into physicians, and physicians were saying, you want to manage your weight. Well, every 5 years or something, your body needs 100 less calories. And so I bought into this notion from medical professionals who meant well, who are very smart, very, like, I trust them, right? And they weren't trying to sell me lies. But what happened is, what they weren't telling me, and maybe it was lack of me following up, or maybe it was just lack of information on their behalf, is that you can't always stay in a deficit. You can't always just simply, right? So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, you're telling me 100 calories less, that means like every 5 years I got to keep shaving stuff off, damn it, right? And so when I heard what my calorie load should be because of all my cycling, I was like, no way, no, no way, I'm gonna gain a lot of weight. Um, I'm happy to report it didn't happen. And actually, what did happen is I had way more energy than even drinking like two, Red Bulls or something a day. Um,
Crazy how
and
that happens.
felt amazing. But what happens is that the brain is constantly searching for pattern recognition, right? So I want to take the example that you gave of the Cheesecake Factory meal we can easily put away. We can't. We just can't. And please enjoy your meals. Like that's not what I'm saying, right? Please keep enjoying Cheesecake Factory. They're lovely meals. Cheesecake is wonderful. Here's the issue though. Pattern recognition, and especially when we're really anxious about weight gain, what happens is that we go and we have a meal like that, and then if you're like lots of us on this planet, because we feel more bloated the next day, we then step on the scale. Maybe we wait a couple days to do it, and sure enough, the scale goes up by 2 pounds, or a pound, or 3 pounds, or even worse, 4 pounds, or something like that. And because our brains are wired for survival and they are constantly looking for pattern recognition, we go, I knew it. It was that meal I had at Cheesecake Factory.
Yep.
I gained 2 pounds. I gained 5 pounds. Okay. And we don't take into consideration the logic behind it. The logic behind it is unless you had 3,600 calories times two, three, or four, or five beyond what your daily needs were met,
It's
that's
not that.
not real weight.
Yeah.
It's just a bump in the scale. It's either because you haven't pooped yet, because maybe you have inflammation from the alcohol and all the sugar that you drank. There's a
Sodium.
lot of reasons why that happens, right? But because our brains are looking for pattern recognition, they just want the easiest answer. The brain goes, see, I can't ever eat Cheesecake Factory again. I can never have that much food. And what happens is we start fighting this concept, because then then we drop the calories, and we go, okay, for the next week or two, I'm going to go clean. I'm going to eat 1,200 calories. I'm going to manage it. And we drop that weight, and we drop a couple pounds more, and our brain goes, I love this is amazing. So you just need to eat 1,200 calories and never eat Cheesecake Factory. And in our brains, it's done. We're not calculating math. We're not bringing logic into it. We're not even bringing science into it. But here's the fun part. When we do this and we decrease the calorie load for so significantly, and then we keep it, what happens, because again, the body is constantly trying to help us survive, not just the brain is psychologically trying to help us survive by pattern recognition, but the body goes, hey, you're jacking me up, you're not giving me enough fuel. And so then what it does is it increases ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, and it increases cortisol, which is the stress hormone, because the body is responding to a scarcity mindset, right? So it throws it into feast or famine. The body says, oh crap, I'm not getting enough fuel.
Yep.
And so then it increases hunger. And then do you know what cortisol does to us? It packs on weight. So then, right, cortisol means I'm in a stressed environment. Now the body just says, okay, we got to hang on to every little possible thing. And this is where metabolism gets impacted. And therefore, I'm not going to let you lose any more, because you're losing too fast and because you're not giving me enough fuel. And I don't know how long you're going to do this. And I got to keep you alive. So I'm going to actually outwork what your brain is trying to tell you to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Okay.
I think this is a really great segue to dive into the science and impact of under eating, right? Just because, like Anne said, there is, there's emotional space of which we operate from as human beings, and just like we said, trying to justify, and we like look for the easiest thing to point the finger to, but then there's the logical and the actual science back thing of what's really going on. And it's crazy because it's like most females desperately just want to drop some body fat. They don't realize they want to add muscle to their frame, but they do. They want the tone shaped body. And what's required of that and what they're doing are two very different things. And so we go the direct because we think what we're after is a lower number on the scale, which is going to equate to the look that we're going for. And that's just what we've been hardwired to believe, specifically as females. And that's toxic diet culture, right? But what you're really after is not just weight loss, you're after fat loss. What you're really after is not just fat loss, but you're after sustainable fat loss. You don't want to do this 15 different times, right? Like you want to lose it, you want to keep it off, and you want something that you can sustain and maintain that gives you your life back, that gives you flexibility, that gives you freedom. So what is all of that? All of that is creating a metabolism that works for you, because metabolism doesn't break, you guys. Like Anne said, it's an adaptation machine. Your metabolism is quite literally there to help keep you alive. And so why it may not break, it adapts. And so if we're constantly dieting and we're constantly in this eat less mentality, and you live in the 12 to 1,300 calorie rut, because 1,200 calories a day seems to be that magical number that women think that they need to eat to lose weight, right? So you live in that rut, you've created a 12 to 1300 calorie metabolism because it adapts and it down regulates the amount of food that you're giving it. And your body just, it needs to conserve energy to keep you alive. So it does, like your output becomes less because you don't have the energy to do so. Little things like I'm a hand talker. It drives people crazy. I sit here, I do this, but those things start to slow down, right? Like you're fidgeting, your foot tapping starts to slow down. You're not sleeping as well. Like digestion starts to get impacted because that's not working as well, just with less energy, i.e., food coming in. Your body, I don't want to say it shuts down, but it's conserving energy. And so you have created, your metabolism is quite literally what you feed it. So you've created, you're eating 12 to 1300 calories, you created that 12 to 1300 calorie metabolism. And so I hear all the time, well, starvation mode, right? Like I'm eating less and I'm gaining fat. I'm in starvation mode. And I'm like, starvation mode's not a thing. You can't create matter out of nothing, right? Your body has to have excess calories to create body fat. But what quote unquote starvation mode is technically you just really downregulating your metabolism, right? Like you don't eat less and gain weight. You eat less and you create a metabolism that is impacted at that point. And one of two things happen. It becomes really easy to gain weight and really hard to lose weight because the amount of food that you need to sustain and maintain your weight becomes less and less
Yes.
and less
Yeah.
from your BMR. So what you really need, everything that you're after, everything that is good in life for you is adding muscle to your frame, creating a metabolism that is on fire, and truly being able to give your body what it needs to thrive. But that is a completely different mentality than I constantly need to weigh less, I need to eat less. And so it keeps women in this vicious cycle because they're the thing they want the most. They're going this way with their goals, their metabolism, their body, their hormones. Like we can even get to the hormone piece of it, of down regulation, and all my babes in menopause. And that is the majority of females listening to this. I mean, it would be the amount of influencers online right now. They're like, hormones don't matter. And I'm like, hormones indirectly impact fat loss because they directly impact how you feel. It would be ignorant to say that hormones
Yes.
don't matter when you
Yes.
are not sleeping and your emotions are all over the place. And, like Anne said, your cortisol and your stress is through the roof and cravings are insane. And you just are a stranger in your own body. Do you think you're going to want to wake up and you're like, oh yeah, hitting the gym sounds amazing today. And I am like, my cravings are through the roof. Nobody like wakes up with an apple core underneath their pillow, right? Like it doesn't happen that way. And so it indirectly impacts fat loss with all of those things that are going on, like internally, hormonally. And so there are a lot of things happening when we talk to the science piece of it, the adaptation piece of it, the metabolic piece of it, the hormonal piece of it. And it is something that I could sit here and talk and educate on just at length because I'm so passionate about it, because until we break and we accept that what we're currently doing is no longer serving us. And it takes a lot of mindful effort to get out of a place, myself included, to get out of a place that food is not the enemy. I just went through a little mini cut because we're going on a vacation next week and I just wanted to feel good in my bikini, right? And even I, for a second, I was like, oh, well, I don't want to be bloated going in as I'm like bringing food back up. And I was able to, accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. Even I was like, oh, I don't want to be bloated. I'm going to put this bikini. And I like started to have a moment where I was like trying to talk myself out of increasing my calories. And it just, that space of it is normal, but it's understanding from a logical space what's really going on. And there's a disconnect there for a lot of people.
And yeah, and I hear so many people who will lose weight, go on a diet, get to a place where they have reduced calories, and also assume that that's where they need to stay for the rest
Yep.
of their life. Well, if I got to this weight on these calories, then therefore I have to stay here to maintain this weight. And it's
Not how
such
metabolism works. It's just not.
it's such a challenge to work against, and I do mean this. We're working against almost every single diet in the industry
Mhm.
when we're doing this. Every single diet in the industry is going to tell you, from Weight Watchers to keto. Well, keto does a little bit funkier stuff with less calorie stuff, but every single diet on the planet is going to run counter to this. And what's interesting about it is that it's a more scientifically based way to go about it, but it's anti-culture based way to go about
Mhm.
it. And that's why we want to fight it, because it's really scary. And there's so much disinformation and misinformation in the world to sell you things. Just to sell you a product, right? And they'll guarantee weight loss at the end of this, and you'll get the weight loss at
Mhm.
the end of that. But the problem is that everything that they're doing is moving against the body's how the body is actually wired to help us survive.
Yep. women
on a really basic
subconsciously,
level.
I feel like women subconsciously love restriction because it's all that they know. Restriction's really comfortable, right? When you've grown up with this diet mentality, and I'm not saying consciously you want to restrict food, but it feels comfortable. Maybe love is the wrong word. Restriction feels comfortable because restriction is all that you know.
Well, let me
I would
I want
love,
to
yeah,
speak.
reframe that for me if you can.
This is probably a different podcast episode, so I'm probably going to put my foot in the well of something that's quite a bit deeper than what I intend to go. But as women, and I think sometimes as Americans, we pride ourselves in doing things that are horrific, that we wouldn't encourage even our friends to do. We overwork.
Mm,
We as women, we work full-time jobs like we don't have kids at home, and try to take care of our kids like we don't have a job, and try to manage a household like people that don't have a job or kids. And we put all these unrealistic expectations on ourselves, and then we praise each other for that.
yeah.
You have so much discipline, your house always looks so great, how do you work 70 hours or manage a business and still have this or that? Like, and one of the things that we have to break up with in our lives is we have to break up this idea that being burned out, bitter, and overworked versions of ourselves is actually the preferred person.
Mm,
With calories, like, how many times we praise people for doing absolutely obnoxious and insane things.
yeah. Oh,
Oh,
sure.
waking up at 3 in the morning to train for that marathon, and then going to bed at midnight because you're working really late and in school. And like, why are we praising things like that? I like, worry about friends when they do that. Express concern that they're burnt, that they're going to get to a place that they're going to burn out. But also, we need to do that when it comes to fuel. We need to do that when it comes to exercise. Let's not praise people for burning themselves out by continuing on some ridiculous pattern of undereating and overdoing. Let's talk to people about self-compassion and self-care. If you wouldn't encourage your child to do it, or your spouse to do it, or your friend to do it, why the heck do you think it's okay for you to do it?
Yep, for sure. And there's so much internal work here that has to happen for, because when your identity becomes attached to, and I worked through that big time when I was prepping for my first show, my identity became attached to the girl that had veins popping out in her arms. And people would stop me at the store and be like, oh my gosh, how do I get like an upper body like yours? And, but when you no longer have that and your self-worth is wrapped up, like those are the things that make you worthy. No wonder we stay attached to this, you know what I mean? The thing that got me that shredded was 1,200 calories. It was excessive cardio. There was a lot that went in. And this is competition, you guys. This is by no means normal physique. By no means am I like advocating for that at all whatsoever. But bodybuilding is an extreme sport. And so, with that being said, it's like it is everybody praises the outcome, but very few people realize what goes into achieving that outcome. And then you become attached to like, I have to do those things to continue to see this. And ultimately you'd have to continue to eat as little as you possibly could to maintain that level of leanness. For me is not sustainable whatsoever. I was just a shell of a human being. And so learning how to disconnect or how to detach your worthiness from something like that, it's a lot of internal work. It's a lot of hard work. It doesn't come easy. And Anna,
Yeah, and
she's shaking her
yes,
head.
and as someone who struggled through an eating disorder um, myself, and got to a place now where I'm treating them, um, I hear and have tried just about everything in the context of disordered eating, and really, really struggled with a lot of stuff, and see people do this all the time. And the end result is you just make yourself crazy. And
Yep.
we're trying so hard sometimes even to achieve what we say, like, oh, well, this celebrity looks amazing. And, I know that this celebrity looks like this, or this model looks like this because it's in this magazine, or it's in this. And all of those images are altered, all of them.
Yep.
There is a single image that isn't altered. And on top of that, on top of altered images, these are also people that have so much money and so many resources at their fingertips to get surgeries, to get special supportive shapewear, and all the tricks of the trade that none of us have time for, plus makeup artists and hair artists and all this stuff. And we're trying to achieve something that's not actually sustainable or achievable long term, or even sometimes for many of us short term. um and I want to share, so my husband and I recently, we went to Puerto Rico, and I shared with you earlier that we had one of the best meals that we've ever had. hands down, what little restaurant called Marmalade that is in San Juan, and I enjoyed every single bite. Back when I was really struggling, that was something that I would have had tears over, and I probably only would have eaten half and would have left hungry and thinking about the leftovers on the plate. And I had no guilt, right? I ate it all, dessert included. Couldn't finish quite all of dessert because it was a 5 course meal. Had wine, had like all the accompaniments with it, and it was fabulous. And I walked away, didn't feel guilt, didn't worry. Still get to manage my. I'm a mom of 7, a grandmother of 1. We've got 10 kids total. Like I'm always running, but I'm not running myself into the ground. And I'm not walking away from situations regretting or feeling jealous or envious of other people because they were able to actually enjoy it. I actually got to enjoy the food. And I understand that one meal isn't going to make or break my life
That's
or my,
empowerment. Yep.
right?
Yep. That's empowerment right there. And
And
ultimately,
nobody had to do that.
I would love to point out too, like that you said that, Anne, and just to the listeners, ultimately, whenever anybody starts this journey, they think it's for that physical transformation, right? Like it's the 20 pounds I need to lose, the dress I need to fit back into, the high school reunion, the wedding, whatever the case may be. But what you're really after is exactly what Anne just said. I was on vacation. I enjoyed a meal with my husband. Every single bite, there was no guilt. There was no shame. There was no restriction. There was no, okay, now I have to go burn all this food off. It was just pure enjoyment in the moment. Right. And it wasn't about the food. Yes, the food was delicious, like you said, but you were there, you were with your husband, and there was no guilt or whatnot wrapped into that. And that's truly like that right there is everything, everything. And a lot of listeners will probably be going, how, like, it's so far from a reality from what they perceive to be possible. They're like, how in the world do you get there? But it takes a lot of mindful effort. I would love to hear, Anne, like for somebody here who's like listening right now thinking I hear them, we need to eat more food to see success. At the foundation, I think the logical side of them knows that there's a piece of this that's very much so true, but there's just no way I can do that without gaining weight. What would you say to somebody like that? Like, because I know that there's listeners right now, they're going, okay, logically I hear this, but there's just no way I could possibly do that.
Try it. You don't know until you try.
Yeah.
Like I just like, right, like okay, like you keep doing the same thing. You pick a different diet name or a different way, or you try the same thing that you've always tried, assuming that you're the problem. I want to speak to this really quickly. 95% of all diets fail, yet most of us will assume it's our lack of willpower.
Yep.
And I want you to think about this. If 95 of all diets fail, and then we get to the end of a diet and it fails us, or we start regaining the weight back, like your willpower wasn't in question. Your willpower was doing its job because it was managing something that was unrealistic,
Yep.
probably too much. You were doing something that statistically doesn't work.
That sets you up to fail. Statistically, these diets they want you to fail. Like at the end of the day, all of them want you to lose the weight. They want you like really loving the emotion that comes with, right? And you're like riding that high. But every single one of these diets want you to gain it back because they want a customer for life, you guys. Like this is not a you thing. This is a them thing. This is, I want to pad my pocketbook thing. This is a money thing. The dieting industry is a multi-billion dollar industry. But yet women take and they wear that and the shame and whatnot that goes into it because I couldn't sustain that, right? And it's just like, no, it is not a you thing. It's just not.
No, and I have worked with people that have done Overeaters Anonymous and gotten rid of sugar and flour and processed foods. And I've worked with people that have done Weight Watchers, and I've worked with people that have done all the supplement, the Jenny Craig, that like I've got to buy the meals from this. And what I routinely hear is I can't manage my weight unless I'm buying this on this program, tracking this, looking at all my calories. That is a bold-faced lie. Your body was designed to manage your weight naturally. We just lost it trying to get and achieve a lot of times unrealistic things, or getting tied up in emotionally caring for ourselves through food and our emotions through food. And that's a different podcast than what we're talking about today. But it's the food isn't the enemy. Your body actually is the enemy. Your willpower isn't even the enemy. Your willpower did a great job managing a whole bunch of really crappy diets that were set up to fail from the very get-go.
Yep.
Right. And it works, right? So if the only way that you can manage your weight is on Weight Watchers, that's again, it's for life. They've got somebody that constantly coming back. The only way that you can manage it is through Jenny Craig or through Atkins or through buying all these supplements and meal bars and replacement shakes And all of you are a client for life then, because
Mhm.
you mistakenly believe that the only way that you can manage weight is by purchasing something.
Yeah. They only teach you how to diet. They don't teach you how to, like Anne said,
Live.
calories have to normalize. They have to. And there is not a single well, outside of what we do, but there's not a single diet that I know out there that shows you how to normalize calories, how to be like, pull yourself out of the restrictive state, because dieting is, there's a form of restriction when you're dieting, and dieting is a piece of the puzzle for everybody, right? But it's not the whole puzzle. And you'll be in a space where, calories will be on the lower end for a period of time when it's done correctly, and there's strategy behind it. Yeah, a small period, as she's saying, like, yes, a very small period of time. But Anne, I know that she's kind of shorter on time today, but I would love for you to speak to, because Anne, like you said, she has her journey. She, quote unquote, in her words, cardio junkie, not because she does it for weight management. She truly loves it. And it's just, and there's a space of that for sure. That's how she, mental clarity, all of the things that come with it, and just pure enjoyment. But when Anne joined our team, we really had to pull that piece of it back. It's not that she couldn't do those things. We never want to pull something from somebody that they love, but we had to implement, and we had to, obviously, the strength training piece of it, we had to start to incorporate more food. How did you work through that mentality? Because again, somebody's listening, there's no possible way I can do this, but you were there, you did that, coming from somebody who had that mentality. How did you come out on the other side? Because clearly where you're at now, right, you're thriving, you feel great, you look amazing, you're stronger than you've ever been. You guys, girlfriend's like a boss babe, like she's a babe. I mean if I look half as good as Anne does, like, I seriously amazing. And so I would love to hear how you came out on the other side, I guess.
Well, I'll be honest. Even though I do this for a living, and I say this all the time, I am a human being, and I was an angry. Bless my coach. She was a saint, because even while I was at the gym learning how to do all these, and some of this, it was just embarrassing. I'm going to the gym and I'm lifting weights and I don't know how to do it. And I'm like watching other people look, I'm trying to see their form without looking like I'm looking at them, because I'm trying to figure out how to do it all. Um, and and feeling really bad, because I purchased all of these apps that took me through strength training exercises before, and I thought, well, why can't I get there? Like, what? Like, I feel like I've done some of these things. Why is it not getting me to the right place? And part of it was because I didn't have the food piece
Mm-hmm.
maximized the way that I needed to. The other part of it is that no one was looking at what specifically my body needed, and so I was doing a standard protocol weight training exercises for anyone, but didn't necessarily take into account my body composition and what my body composition needed, and some of the weaknesses that I had. I can't do a squat to save my soul, but I can lift a truck with my arms. And what was interesting about that is that when I went to the gym, I was cursing, and sometimes still do, my
Yeah.
coach under my breath, like the entire time. This is just stupid. I'm not going to do this. And I'd be like, fine, I'll do it. And and I had to, like, so working through that, and I'm a firm believer in this, is I was constantly challenging myself. Okay, you've never done this. I know you don't like it. That's okay. You don't have to like this. I just want you to try it. Just want you to give it a fair shot. And some of what I firmly believe, and I worked through myself and work with other people on working through exercise compulsion, because I was an exercise addict for a while. Um, is that in learning how to enjoy something, not being compulsive around it, but in actually learning how to enjoy it, we have to learn how to spot the things that we're grateful for. And we have to learn how to pay
Mhm.
attention to things that bring us joy in this. And so it shifted from, I don't know how to do this. I look like an idiot. Why am I having to do this? This whole self pity. Woe is me. Like,
I had plenty of
right.
those moments.
Um, to, oh my gosh, I lifted 5 pounds heavier on this, or, oh wow, I think I nailed this form, or, oh, that's what I'm doing. Right. So I remember the first time I started hip thrust, I super
Mhm.
embarrassed at the gym. I'm looking around me and I'm like, I'm too old to be doing these. Um, and I'm seeing other people doing them, right? Like, I'm not the only one. And then I got really interested in learning how to correct my form, and I got really interested in learning what this does and why it is so important. And even in that journey, I wound up having to do some physical training for weak glutes, which makes sense because I sit all day long in doing therapy. And I was impressed and amazed that this old gal and her body could still do pretty cool things and that I could learn
Mm,
different things, right? And I was doing squats on one of those upside down balls and I was shaking the whole time and I looked like I had Parkinson's. Um, and then I could do squats and I wasn't shaking at all. And I was like, oh, wow,
mm,
this is super cool. And not only that, but then I realized that as I was moving and I was walking up the stairs and I was doing other things, I could take the stairs two at a time, that I had a lot more energy and a lot more strength, even in my steps, and a lot better balance. And I really appreciated those things. Lifting up my granddaughter and throwing her above my head, and she's, a good solid 30 pounds and a sack of potatoes most of the time when I'm doing this. She's giggling, I'm having fun, nothing hurts.
mm,
Um, and so, some of this is really teaching your brain how to identify self pity, bitterness, and anger, giving yourself permission to have those feelings. I certainly don't want you to shame yourself for noticing those things, but rather get really curious. And then give yourself permission to notice the things that you start liking. Initially, the reason why I don't like new changes in my program is because I don't know how to do it, or I don't do a good job at it.
mhm.
So that brings up feelings of shame. Like, I'm an idiot. How could I be this age and I can't know how to do these things? And I remember kind of like, puffing things up. I'd grab like the heavier weight. I'd go back and I'd be like, yeah, I can do this. And I'm like hanging on to it, doing one of these numbers. And then I'd grab the smaller weight and then I'd like, oh, I still need smaller. My coach at the time said, why is that embarrassing? She's like, look at how far you came already. Why is that embarrassing? I'm like, well, everybody else has got heavier weights. This little girl next to me's got this tight. He's like half my age, got this tight. He's got this weight that's twice my size. And she goes, so what? Why are you comparing yourself to her?
Yep.
Um, and so it's funny because I have these same discussions all day long. Um, and I'm still a human being and I still have to work through these things. But the psychology behind it is, we can't have growth if we are resistant to doing new things. And
Mhm.
if we don't allow ourselves to emotionally have those feelings and give ourselves permission to not just have them, but work through them and not stay stuck in them, we're never going to get to a different place if we can't do new things.
So true. And I love that you mentioned that you got really curious. And I think that's it could be a big key for some people, right? Because when you understand the why behind the what, it makes the implementation piece of it so much easier. When you understand why adding muscle to your frame is so ungodly important, it makes, when you're strength training and you don't want to do the thing, like, it makes it easier to, quote unquote, until you find. And I think a lot of it is too, like Ann said, it's new, it's hard, it's uncomfortable. And it's like, well, it's just new comes with a bit of a learning curve. And that's just natural with anything, right? Like, if you want to play the piano, you want to learn to like Japanese, like, you're not going to pick that up right away and just start speaking fluent Japanese. It doesn't work that way, right? So there's a learning curve to work through that. And I think if there's a place where you can get curious and you can go into it with a mentality that this is going to suck for a little bit. It's going to hard. It's going to be hard. It's going to feel uncomfortable. And you go into it with that mentality, right? And you get curious as to what's truly going on and the why behind the what. It just, the mental space of it so much easier. Like, and I have the same thing. Like, I'm actually opposite of Anne. Like, I would just much rather strength train. Like, I don't want to, like, the cardio piece of it. I'm like, oh, right, sure, great. Like, if you have to get me to run, I could pick up and do a 10K if I needed to, but I don't enjoy it. I'm not like over here like, ooh, yeah, let me do this. And he has added in so much like cardiovascular work before my training for a lot of different goals that I have and whatnot. But I'm the same thing as Anne. I'm like going into, I'm like sprints on the air bike for my leg day. Like, who, I don't, I'm like, why? And I'm like pissy about it the whole time. And I'm like, and I'm cursing and I'm doing the whole thing. But there is a space if I want a different outcome and you have different goals, like, you different actions to be in alignment with that outcome. And so I think the curiosity piece, and I'm glad that you brought that up, is a big thing and I think it would really serve a lot of women if they could just get a bit more curious as to why they're doing the thing that they're doing on both ends, whether it's serving you or not, right? Like, okay, I'm doing this thing, it's no longer serving me. Why is it no longer serving me? Or this is the outcome I want. Why am I doing these things to achieve that outcome?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. And I want to speak to this as well because we're talking about just the angst behind the exercise, that hating exercise the entire time is not the goal. And exercise for the point of weight loss is ironically also not the goal.
Mhm.
And the reason I say that is because research actually shares that when we exercise for weight loss, we like historically and what as human beings we do, we won't sustain it. And that because it's a means to an end, right? So if we're exercising to feel stronger, if we're exercising to feel empowered, if we're exercising to get better balance, if we're exercising because we feel less stressed afterwards, then that's good exercise.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Um,
Exercise
and
to
if
burn calories. And that's the
I,
mentality that
I
so many females have.
the calories in versus calories out, if you get to the bare bones of the science behind it, yes, that is true what weight loss does, but we wind up being hamsters on a wheel when we play that game.
Hmm.
And it's a horrible mental funk to be in to constantly, like, oh, well, I went 200 calories over. That means I got to walk tonight, or I gotta make sure that I extend my run in the morning by 15 minutes. It's not only is that really dangerous because that's very disordered eating and very disordered exercise, that is not how life was designed and how our bodies were designed to work. A couple extra calories here and there is not going to kill us.
Hmm.
It balances out as long as we keep a relatively consistent routine.
Yep. 1,000%, 1,000%. And there has never been a situation, and I've coached thousands, myself and my team, I shouldn't just say myself, but myself and my team have coached thousands of women at this point. And there has never, ever, ever, ever been of the thousands of women, ladies, I want you to really listen to what I'm saying right now, a situation where somebody has come in and where we have not given their body what it needed, where it didn't respond,
Mm.
meaning giving it more food, more protein, more strength training, more mindful movement, right? Like, and that's what I mean by that, this idea of giving your body what it needs, because most women, again, purely operate out of space of restriction. And it's always this less is best mentality, again, that we're trying to break here. But when you can go into it with this idea of what more can I give my body, not only mentally, is that just easier to, I guess, stay in alignment with or stay in the game with, but your body, like Anne said, I realized when I started eating more, I had more energy. I realized when the restriction wasn't as high, it made it much easier to sustain and maintain, right? And so it is, when you give your body what it needs, it gives back to you every single time. And I think that's how I'm going to wrap this up, Anne.
I could,
Do you have anything else to add?
I just to the listeners, I know that this probably almost sounds too good to be true. And most of the time, I, as a psychologist, would caution people against the too good to be true phenomenon. This time, as an eating disorder specialist, as somebody in recovery as well, this is not too good to be true. This actually is the case. And just give yourself permission to pursue that and to get really curious about what that might look like for you, because this is freedom from food, freedom from obsessive dieting, freedom from constant calorie counting and checking and over exercising. It's so much better to be on the other side of this than to be stuck in our diet craze culture.
1,000%. And I love, like you said, you brought up the meal with your husband, because that right there, like we said, is just what every single female really truly wants. I think it starts at one thing, but what you truly want is that freedom. You want to live life, you want to enjoy, because I promise you, 90-year-old you know, is not going to go. That one time I was on vacation, I am so glad I was so disciplined that I didn't enjoy that meal out with my husband.
Yep.
Like, and if you think about it that way, you know, you will never look back and be like, I'm so glad I restricted myself to the point where I was starving and miserable and, you know, missed out on, you know, social situations and birthday parties and just moments to be present and be aware and enjoy what life has to offer, because I, you know, kept that 10 pounds off that I was trying to keep off kind of concept. So again, Anne, thank you. I think that this was amazing. I hope there were some light bulb moments for some of these ladies, but a lot of things that came from this for just future podcast episodes too, which is always amazing. So we'll have to take these and kind of spin off of some of these concepts, but we will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.
If this is helpful, give me a like, follow me, or subscribe for more.